Hi artist! This video is going to show you the steps for creating the contour lines for your portrait project. So the first step is to get your canvas set up. So what we want to do to start a new canvas is go to the plus button right up here when we're on our gallery page, so I can see all the artworks I've made before. So I hit the plus sign and we are going to create a new canvas size. You probably don't have as many options as me, but when you go to this black file tab up here, you can create a new canvas size. We're going to make our canvas size, sorry, this is a little bit out of focus. Let's see here. That's better. 2300 pixels, 2300 pixels for the width, and 3000 pixels for the height. The DPI should automatically be set at 300. And for the layers, it doesn't really matter what those are. It's just dependent on the iPad. So once I have 2300 pixels for width, 3000 for height, I can hit create. And I'll automatically have my portrait style canvas. Remember, I can use my fingers to zoom in and out. I can use my fingers to twist it around depending on the style of my photo. And now my next step is to upload the photo reference that I have for this project. So to upload a photo, I'm going to hit this wrench tool in the upper left-hand corner and go over to the Add tab on the left. And here I go to Insert a Photo. From there, I should see the photos in my Photos app. I already inserted it, and it should pop up in a new layer. Oops, hold on, let me open up my artwork. It should open up in a new layer. So if you want to be able to move your photo around, enlarge it slightly, change it a little bit, my photo on the screen is a little bit brighter than it actually appears. But if I go to this pointer tool, this mouse tool, then I can move my photo around. I can make it larger or smaller, but I do want this to be positioned in the right size for how I want my drawing to look. So make sure to enlarge it and get it in the correct position for you. There we go, that looks better. And when I'm done, I can just hit that mouse tool again to save it. All right, so with our photo, we want to lighten up the transparency so we can see the lines that we draw a little bit more easily. So if I go to my Layers tab, I can change the transparency or the opacity of the entire layer. So when I click this N, I get several different blending options we'll learn about later. But what we want right now is to lower the opacity. So when you move this bar, you should see your photo getting lighter and lighter and lighter. If you put the opacity somewhere in the 60s, I just put it to 62%, you want to still see your image, but just have it be a little bit lighter. So when we draw on top of it, I can see that more easily. That should be good. And then another thing I'm going to want to do with this layer is to lock it in place. I don't want to draw on my photo. We'll be deleting the photo by the end of this project. So what I want to do is lock it so I don't accidentally draw it and then have to redo my drawings later. So I lowered the opacity and I locked this layer. I've enlarged my photo, it fits the space well. So now my next step is to start drawing my contour lines. So I'm going to do that on a new layer. So I hit the plus button to add a new layer. I find it good to rename my layers to keep myself organized. So I'm going to name this layer Outlines. Done. So the color we want to do is a dark color. Maybe you want to do a pure black or maybe a dark gray, dark blue, something dark. At the end of this project, I'll show you a way to change all your outline colors really easily. But for this process, it's easiest to see and manipulate when we have a nice dark color. So I'm choosing black. And then brushes, feel free to experiment how this works with a variety of brushes. What I've enjoyed using is under the inking tab and called Studio Pen. That works well for me. Maybe you want to try some of the other inking brushes. Maybe you want to try some calligraphy brushes like the Streaks pen or maybe the Monoline. You don't want to choose a pen that has a lot of, or a brush that has some transparency to it, like a chalk brush, for instance, where it's not a solid line. That's not going to work as well for this project. You want something a little bit more solid, like the Monoline would work. Or I'm going to go back to the Studio pen down here. Okay. Throughout your portrait, you'll be changing the size for bigger or smaller, depending on the area of interest, but I keep the opacity all the way up. All right. So now it will be helpful to probably zoom in to do a section at a time, and you can really start wherever you'd like. Let's start with some of the facial features, and I'll give a few tips for this. So I'm gonna start with a pretty small pen size, maybe size 2 or 3, very small. And for the nose, and as we're outlining in general, we want to do minimal outlines for a more natural look. If I start outlining my entire nose shape, every eyelash, every little wrinkle or line around my face, it's going to look a little bit busy. I'm going to start to look like a really old lady, and it's not going to look quite as artistic. So try to do more minimal lining. So for the nose, a great way to start is with the outline of your nostrils. And then depending on how your nose works, maybe you show the nostril shape a little bit more, fill that in. And if I ever make a line I don't like, I can just undo it by tapping 2 fingers on the screen. If I'm like, oh, I like that, but I don't like a part of it, I can go over to the eraser tool. Remember, if you click on the eraser tool again, you come up with different types of erasers. That can be helpful. Okay, I'll start with something like that. For the mouth, it usually looks best to draw the lower lip, the outline from the bottom, as well as the crease in between your mouth. If your mouth is open or you're smiling, show the bottom of the top lip and the top of the bottom lip. But what I wouldn't recommend drawing is the shape of the top line of your top lip. We'll show that and define that with color. If I outline it all the way, it's going to look, I don't know, a little bit too outliney. This will give a little bit more of a natural look when we're all done. For the eyes, I recommend drawing the top line of your eye, as well as your lid line, if you see that. Outline the iris, as well as your pupil. And then it's helpful to do some lashes. So you can do that in a few ways. Some short curved lines at different lengths, maybe slightly different distances apart. Or maybe you also just do a thicker lash line. So maybe your line is a little bit thicker at that edge of your eye, the outside edge. But then for the bottom line, instead of drawing my line all the way across, consider leaving that line open and we'll start to define the eye just using color, or just showing your line one side of the bottom. So on this half or the outer half, and leaving that. Minimal outlines. You will want to show the outline of your eyebrow. So if your eyebrows are visible and you want to outline that, we'll fill that in with color for your actual eyebrows, but that's a good part to outline too for better definition. So here I'll do the other eye. All right, and I'll outline all right, so now I want to do outlining of my face. I can play around with my brush thickness here. If I have a shadowed side of my face, so this side's a little bit darker, this side's lighter, maybe I do a thicker line on the darker side and thinner line on the other side. Let me try that. That will be a good way to show lightness or value using line thickness. All right, so I'll want to continue going about my clothing so I can outline my shirt, the main lines of my jacket, my hand, my cup, but I'll keep practicing that, just changing the widths of my line. Maybe I want to try different brushes as well, but the last specific part I'll talk to you about is with my hair. So with hair, you don't want to draw every strand, but I also probably don't want to do one continuous line like this for the outline. I would recommend doing your hair in chunks. So if you have a part or you have hair coming out in front of you, I'll just bring my brush to show the general direction. Everybody's hair is going to be a little bit different in how you show it, so I can definitely help with your hair specifically if you need help. I've got to draw my ear. But thinking of it, just showing more of the direction and piecing it together a little bit, but you don't have to have one solid continuous line. Every once in a while, it's helpful to turn off your picture layer and see just how exactly is your drawing going. So if I click these check marks on the side, that hides a layer, so then I can see how does my drawing look on its own. That can be really helpful. Looking good so far. So I have another example finished, or mostly finished. So your drawing should look kind of like this for our first section of contour lines. When you pull it away, hopefully you see a similarity to yourself. Maybe it looks a little bit weird, especially in the mouth area until we add that color or more shadows, but hopefully you're pretty happy with it at this point. And remember, you can always undo or erase areas and give it another go if something doesn't look quite right. But I hope that helps to get started. Our next video will be almost like coloring it in. So figuring out main colors for different sections and then adding some additional colors like in the lips, our eyes, our cheeks. So look forward to that. Thanks for watching.